Hi, my name is Glen Jones. I'm on my lifetime journey to become the best therapist I possibly can be, and it's great you're joining me. So, let's welcome Stephen Blake. He is the creator of OldPain2Go, a methodology for removing physical and emotional pain. And what he does is quite unique. So, when I asked him how I could categorize this session, he introduced me to the concept bilateral clarity. And that's what this masterclass is all about. So, let's meet Stephen Blake. So, Stephen, you have created a great concept named bilateral clarity, and I'm so curious about it. So, please fill in. What's the concept?
Just to give it a base structure, the concept is about the conscious and the unconscious working together with clarity, and it doesn't currently, it doesn't in many people, because even though a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are known things, people haven't thought about getting the unconscious to do its bit as well. So I'm going to point to the slide that we've got ready, which is how I see the conscious and unconscious. Now, a lot of people will argue the semantics about whether it exists and all that. It doesn't matter. It's a very good model for explaining something. And so forgive me if I slip between calling it the subconscious and the unconscious. I see both as the same, but I see the wording is different. Is that the subconscious means it's under the conscious. So it's under that person's control. And all we have to do is think of something, and the unconscious can fetch it for us, or the subconscious can fetch it for us. But it's sub to the conscious, meaning the conscious is in control. You know? And it's not sub to our conscious if we're a hypnotherapist. We have to do the right things to be allowed in to become in control of it. So my idea is with the person that if they've got a problem issue, and the problem issue is always a program that's running in the background that they don't want anymore, the subconscious is running it for a reason. Because the subconscious doesn't play tricks, and it doesn't want you to have a terrible life. So if it's running a program that you don't like, it must think it's brilliant, or it wouldn't be running it. And so we've got a mismatch there of what you want consciously and what the unconscious provides for you, or the subconscious provides for you. But we forget it's under our control. So typically when people have a terrible sensation, let's use anxiety as an example. So if somebody has anxiety, they're feeling great, and then all of a sudden they get this, oh, what's happening? Like they're in physical danger. And then the chemicals take over the body because the brain's saying, hey, remember when you were 6 and this terrible thing happened? But the body goes into it like it's happening again. And there's just been some trigger or association that's took them back to that place in time. And so the body starts to prepare for fight or flight. Or in the case of depression, for hiding, playing dead, so that the other animal doesn't eat you.
Yeah.
So we're getting prepared for something that's not actually going to happen. It happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. So this is the only time as a therapist that we see people. They've got loads of programs running that are just what they need. I mean, I'm 67 now, so my lungs have been going for 67 years. My heart's never had a tea break. You know, it's never had 10 minutes where it said, you know, I'm worn out now. I'm going to have some time out, mate. You sort yourself out. So we've got all these systems going in the body, but we've also got anything that we think about, the unconscious tries to fetch us. But it fetches us from programs that are already in there. Mm-hmm. So the slide that I'm referring to is just simply a rider on a horse. And I always used to use analogies like, a captain of a ship and all that, but they were never quite right because you can't command the rest of the ship to run into the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you can only do what they're willing to do. So I think a rider on the horse is probably the best analogy for the conscious and the unconscious. So if you see the rider as the conscious, so the rider gets on the horse knowing what they want to do, whether they want to go down a certain lane or go over some hurdles that day or whatever they want to do. So they get on the horse, but the horse has to be trained to do the things that the rider likes doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing all our life. We're born with programs, we install programs, we do all sorts of things. Other people install programs for us, unfortunately.
That's called marketing then.
Oh, yes. But not just that. I mean, everything we're told between 0 and 6 from our parents, we haven't got sufficient conscious to actually say, I don't think that's right. I know a few kids seem like they do know that. But in the main, we're told things over and over again. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And so we learn by repetition that's not a nice thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't got this sort of thing to go, oh, I'm not so sure, I think it's good, and put up a bit of protest about it. So if we've got the conscious is the rider and the unconscious is the horse. Now, just think about this. You get on a horse, and if you've ridden a horse a lot and you know what you're doing, and you go down the where the horse is kept, and you go to a fork in the road, and you normally go left, you wouldn't have to consciously do anything. The horse would go left. Mm-hmm. It would go, we normally go here. Now, if one day you decided to turn right, you wouldn't notice that you were doing anything, but probably your knees would squeeze that way, or you'd pull a little on the reins, or you'd adjust your posture. So just your very thought would be that the horse would read it and go, we're going right today, and it would go right. And this is how conscious and unconscious works together. We have thoughts, and providing those thoughts are positive, and we'll talk about the negatives later, providing they're positive, the unconscious goes, if that's what you want, I'll get you it. So this nicely trained horse goes off to the right that day, and you're trotting across a field, and it sees a branch that a dog's left behind, and it's just sticking out some grass. And it thinks, snake. And it rears up and charges off across the field. Now, you know it wasn't a snake, but you've realised what the horse was spooked by. Now, you want to shout at the horse and say, stop galloping. But that sort of energy is only going to make it more frightened. Mm-hmm. And you can't smack it and, you can't do all these terrible things. But even though you're frightened for your life now, you have to calm yourself down and go, it's all right, it was only a stick. Even though you're hanging on for grim death. Because the horse has a mind of its own as well. Yeah. And it's going to do what protects it. And we've got this with the conscious and the unconscious, and we're not realising that. If the unconscious thinks you're in danger, it's going to get you out of it. And you might not think it is danger. But it goes, last time it was, and it was terrible. So it takes over for you. And it can only take over in those sort of life-threatening situations. Most of the time, there's this sort of like, I don't like that, but if you want to do it, okay, that's fine. But if you put yourself in a life-threatening situation, your unconscious will go, we're not having that because I'm going to die with you. Yeah. You do what you like, but I'm not dying. And so, I mean, just imagine that somebody goes out with their friends one day and it's their birthday, and they go, we got a birthday surprise, and they take you to a bridge. And when they get there, they say, we've organised a bungee jump. We're all going to do it. And you go, oh, no, I wouldn't like to do that. That would terrify me. And they go, it's all right, it's all right. And one by one, they all do it, and they look a little bit frightened at first, but they jump off and they come back and go, it's brilliant, you've got to do it, you've got to do it. So you get on this precipice, you're forced into it, you get on this precipice, you don't really want to do it. You don't think it's going to be fun, you think you might die, and so does your unconscious. So when they do the countdown, 3, 2, 1, jump, you lean a bit that way and then you go, oh no, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then you have to be talked into it. So people go, come on, it's lovely, do it, you'll enjoy it. And you might feel that pressure in the end, and you'll have this wavering about where I'm going, and the unconscious goes, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I'm going, no, you're not. Before eventually you either succumb to the pressure and jump, or you go, no, I'm definitely not doing it.
Yeah.
So in life or death situations, your unconscious can take over because it goes, it's not worth the risk, mate. Just don't do it.
So, Steven, what you're actually saying is that through experience in our life, the subconscious will actually do things for you with a positive intention to protect you. Also, if the outcome, what you feel at that moment, is something bad, or you experience it as something bad. So the key thing is that the subconscious actually does everything with a positive intention, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got these two aspects of the mind. Now, I don't like to see it as separate. Just imagine like it's almost got a department there where the boss is. And the boss makes decisions, and the rest of the departments go, well, that's a bit stupid, but if the boss says it, we better do it. So unless it's life-threatening, usually it would take notice of you. Now, the issue is, and I think this is the biggest thing that everybody on the planet should know. I think if everybody knew this, and like if this went out overnight and everybody saw it, it would change the world. And it's a very simple thing that most of us sort of know, but we don't give it the emphasis. And it's the fact that the unconscious doesn't really understand negatives. Now, you can ask a lot of experts on this, and you get 50% say, yes, it does, and you get 50% say, no, it doesn't. It's not as simple as does it or doesn't it. It's not black and white. It's simply this, that if we think something in the negative, because consciously we understand, if I say I'm not going to that party tonight, because there's no emotion or anything with it, it's just, well, I'm not going to that party. And I understand that negativeness. Yeah. But if I have a job interview tomorrow and I think, oh, I'll probably have a panic attack like I normally do, there's some emotion there with it. And I get to rehearse that then. I end up going, oh, I've got that interview at 10 o'clock tomorrow and I'm going to have a panic attack. Yeah. Now, I'm going to show you, I'm not a very good actor, but I'm going to pretend now that I've got a job interview at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And I'm going to prove it by doing the exact opposite to what I am. I'm one of the rare people in the world that actually like job interviews.
Yeah, okay.
It was my chance to go there and shine and find out if I wanted the job. I didn't have this, they'll reject me. It was like, will I reject them? So I'm not this sort of person, but I'm going to pretend in a moment I've just got a letter saying I've got a job interview at 10 o'clock tomorrow and that I have panic attacks when I go to job interviews, right? So I want people to watch the changes that happen when I, as a bad actor, pretend.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll sit there and I'll read this thing, I'll open the letter, I'll be quite excited because it's a job I really want, it pays well, and it does everything I want to do. So I open the letter and I go, I've got an interview tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Oh my God, I know what happens to me at interviews. I'll get there and I'll freeze up and I won't know what to say. And then I'll go all red in the face. And when I go all red in the face, I'll have a panic attack. Look.
Yeah.
This is me pretending, and yet my body, and I do this on a regular basis, and my body still gives me the effort of a panic attack. And I know what panic attacks are like because I used to have claustrophobia and pretty bad attacks. So I can still fetch those chemicals on just by thinking about it. Well, even though I'm not that way inclined anymore. Now, what happens is the unconscious hears the message. And it hears, I want a panic attack tomorrow. Look, I'm going to demonstrate it now. Look, this. And then we go, and that's what I don't want. And then the unconscious goes, well, why did you show me then? And so we might get a bit, we'll keep thinking, I'll keep thinking about that job interview. And I might get distracted. I might get called for a meal or something. And I'll get distracted for a while, so I'll stop thinking about it. But then the unconscious, as soon as I finish the meal, will say, remember you've got that interview tomorrow. What do you want? And I say the same again. I go, oh God, I'll have a panic attack. I'll have a panic attack and I'll go all red in the face. And it'll be horrible. And the unconscious goes, yeah, that's what you said last time, but I don't understand. I'm sure you don't want a panic attack because you want the job. And if I give you a panic attack, you won't get the job. So tell me again. And this is why when we worry about something, we don't just worry once. We don't worry and go, I'm done now. I've had me worry. We constantly go back there. And this is all that's happening, is the unconscious questions you. Are you sure what you want? And then we tell it again in the same negative way.
Which actually enforces.
Enforces it, yeah. Because if you tell it often enough, it'll go, okay.
Yeah.
I'm giving it, it's pretty stupid, but it's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
But it's pretty stupid. So what will happen is, I'll keep doing this over and over again. I might not even get to sleep. But if I do get to sleep, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing on my mind will be the unconscious going, are you sure you want a panic attack? And I'll get that sensation and I'll go, yes, this is what I don't want.
Yeah.
And so eventually I get there. So I go to the interview. Now, the only good thing about anxiety is I never switch anxiety off for people. I just reduce it back to the level it should be. Because you need anxiety. So anxiety makes us prepare for things like interviews. So if I've got anxiety, I know I'll prepare well. So I go along with all the paperwork and I get to the interview and it's a job I can do easily. And I got all the paperwork. And for a while I settle in with this. Everything's going swimmingly. I'm prepared. Oh yeah, it's all great. And then I get asked that famous question at interviews. Why should we give you the job, Steven?
Mm.
And I go, oh, I don't know. And then I go, oh my God, this is when I go red. Oh, this is when I go red. Oh no, and I don't know what to say. Now I'm going to have a panic attack. Yeah. So I leave the meeting. Now this is where people then reinforce it even worse. Because when they get outside the meeting, they have a rally to the world and they go, oh, thank you for that. Just what I needed. So if negatives don't work, sarcasm won't work because the unconscious goes, I got it right.
Yeah.
And this is how people go through life having these terrible things happening to all the time. I call them drama queens, but there might be other expressions elsewhere. And I've often given talks to groups and I say, so we all know a drama queen, don't we? Somebody who makes a lot of very little. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know one, it's you.
Okay. There we go.
Because they don't hang around together. So, so we end up reinforcing this negativeness. Now, the stupidity is that when we get that negative feeling of, oh my God, I'm going to have a panic attack, I train all my clients with this. If you get a sudden change of emotion or sensations, the first thing you do, you don't change your breathing or whatever, the first thing you do is look around and see if you are in any physical danger. Mm. Because then you get the reassurance. Nothing's happening.
I'm safe.
I'm safe. Nothing's happening. Because one of these days, the loud noise you hear will be a bus sounding its hooter at you because it's about to run you over. And you don't want to go, oh, I ought to change my breathing. No, you ought to get off the road. So if you check first, you can then do anything you like that calms you down. So you can breathe differently. You can move your body differently. That the body and the brain work together very carefully. is that when it gives you signs saying you're in danger, if you join in with it, it then reinforces that you are in danger. So you get all sort of, oh my God, it's going to happen. And if we just went, well, nothing's happening, and you put your shoulders back and you behave differently and you relax, the brain goes, well, we're not in danger, are we? Oh, well, what is happening? Well, nothing's happening. Oh, what am I doing then? Yeah. So it doesn't carry that trigger on. And obviously, as therapists, we learn how to help people to remove that altogether anyway. But if anybody does start to think they're having a panic attack, that's all they need to do. Am I really in physical danger? No. Okay. And then do all the things that they're trained to do. Excuse me. So this is what we've got. We've got a system here whereby there's two aspects to the mind, the bit with us, with our willpower, and the bit that runs everything we think of. And it takes things quite literally as well. So because we have to come up, almost conjure up an image of what we want or don't want. And then it's very difficult to add words to say, I don't want that. So the old example of don't think of a purple elephant with yellow spots. I know you've just made an image of a purple elephant with yellow spots.
There we go.
Yeah. But if I said to you, look, really, don't, come on, don't think of that purple elephant with yellow spots, you'd still go there. Now, if I said, well, every time I mention that, I just want you to think of a yellow banana. So don't think of a purple elephant with yellow spots. Yeah. So you put in there what you want. So all this person or me needed to do for this job interview was to open the letter, say, here's that job interview I really want. Now, in the past, I've had panic attacks, but I know better than that now. I'm going to go there. I'm going to be so confident. I'm going to get this fabulous job. And the unconscious goes, you want to be confident? We know how to do that. We can give you the right chemicals. See you tomorrow. Isn't that ridiculous that we can just change that thought from one thing to the other and we get what we're thinking about? Yeah. So the reason I'm talking about bilateral clarity is it's a two-way system. That the conscious has to be saying to the unconscious, here's what I want, in such a way that the unconscious gets it, understands it, can fetch it for you. And let me give you another example. Imagine you say to me, what would you like for your birthday, Stephen? And I say, well, I've got lots of things, but buy me something you think I'll really like. Now, what have I just done? I've put an emphasis then for you to go, what would Stephen really like? Yeah. But if I add on to the end of that, but don't buy me a pen, what am I going to get from you? You're going to go in a shop and you go, I can't see anything Stephen would like. What did he say? What did he say? He said, get me something I like. Oh, a pen.
There we go.
You'll be reminded of the pen. So I'll get the pen, the very thing I didn't want. Yeah.
Now, Steven, so let's say I'm in a situation, I'm feeling some anxiety. So the first thing you actually need to do is to get out of that emotion. Yeah. That's what you are saying with, hey, look around and check if you're safe. Because that's what your unconscious does, but that moment you do that on a conscious level, right? So you are actually communicating in a better way about the same topic you are working on that and that moment, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
The second part is if you're out of that emotion, to check like, hey, what is it exactly what I do want instead? So this is how I'm feeling now. I reduced it, but how do I want to feel instead? Is that that's a summary of what you're saying?
You see, you can make this a lot more complicated by going, so why did I feel like that?
Oh, And then you get trapped in another story.
Then you go down the rabbit hole to, oh, well, this happened when could have been that, could have been this. And you start comparing it with lots of terrible things, which is going to produce terrible chemicals.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we always take it from where we're going to, whoa, do I want to go there? Do I need to go there? No, absolutely not. Where would I like to go to? Same as the horse. You know, I've only got to move my knee a little bit and we're going down the left-hand path. So it's about us taking control again. And it is so simple. And this is the bit that worries me. Somebody talked about imposter syndrome the other day, and I said, oh, I get that now and again. Because some of the things I do, it's so damn simple that I think, well, why does it take me to point it out?
Yeah.
You know, why hasn't lots of people made it this simple before? And people tend to make everything have like 47 steps or something. You know, and it's probably a lot easier to sell a course if it's got 47 steps to get into something than it is if you say, well, it's dead easy, just come along and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So I like the simplicity of everything, taking it back to the bare bones. And you see, we all have the same ways of dealing with things. We're all absolutely unique because of what is in our head. So if you had an identical twin, they wouldn't think the same as you. They would remember things that you remember differently, because I think we're all born with a personality. So then we see things in different ways. And it's how we perceive things that then changes how we see the next thing. Because it's like building blocks. Once you've got an idea of how it works, it's sort of, oh, yeah, and you make it fit. And this is why a lot of people lose self-worth at an early age. I think we all start off with a sort of 10 out of 10, and then bit by bit we get it chipped away, but usually about what other people think of us. And then as we lower that, it changes us into only looking for bad things to happen to us and so
on. Steven, can I just ask a question? Because
yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering. It looks very easy. Like, hey, how do you want to feel, right?
Yeah.
But how do you go from how do you want to feel to actually feeling that way? Because of course you are a very experienced therapist, and you've got like decades of training with yourself, doing self hypnosis, self how do you say it? You debate in your head.
Working on myself, yeah.
Yeah. So, but how do you get
I've,
from one step to another to actually feeling that way?
I'll start off first of all. I haven't got decades worth. I've only got a decade.
Oh, 1 decade. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because I came to this late. But I've always been looking at how the mind works because I used to teach marketing and things like that. And you have to understand how people, the way they think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the simplicity of it. It's not about what's in somebody's head. It's how they feel about what happened to them, and that's what changes them. So it's very difficult for somebody who's never felt what they want to feel to know how to move from where they are now to how they want to feel. So I've had people where I've nearly cried when they've told me, but I've said, well, think of something happy in your life, and they go, it's never happened. Or I'll say, think of some time when you felt confident, and they go, never happened, never ever felt. And that really made me feel sad then. And they mean it, they really mean it. And you have to take them to something that's as close to it as they've ever got, and then get them to feel that, and then amplify it. And people can amplify their own feelings, because literally you can say, you can get a feeling, and then you can, in fact, I'll do it with you. Okay, are you? Let's have a professional demonstration.
There we go.
Okay, so I'd like you. Let's not take something you're bad at. Let's take something that you might have lots of, confidence. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lots.
Well,
Yeah.
you always seem a very confident guy to me. So and to be doing things like that, you must be. So I'm just going to sit. If you just sit there and I say, just think of your confidence. So just take yourself to a time when you felt really confident. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just feel that sensation of confidence. Just remember that incident. And now I want you to double it. Just really intensify that feeling. Feel really, really confident. And then when it's boosted to that, just double it again. And double it again. And if you know anything about anchors, just put an anchor on, like touch your finger to your thumb or something. Just hold on to that sensation. And just let go of it when the confidence has gone back down to its normal level. Yeah. And that's all we need to do. We can say that inside. We can get ourselves to relax. I used to do Qigong classes. And the guy there taught us to say internally, you just said relax 3 times, but you slowed it down every time you said it. So it's relax, relax, and totally relax. And you can say that to yourself, but you have to slow it down. You have to join in with it. You have to make it real.
Well,
Yeah.
you explained it nicely by saying it's like acting,
Mm.
pretending, but linked to a memory, because it's
Yes,
easier to go to a memory and think like, how did I feel then? And then just the feeling appears, and then just pretend like it's coming stronger and stronger, because people should do this at home alone, right?
absolutely.
Should be able to do that. So this is basically what we're doing here, right? Pretending,
Absolutely. Yeah, I never use the word pretending because then it sort of, but I can't pretend.
like
We
fake.
always get,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, we always get excuses from people like, I can't visualize. I go, how did you get here today? How did you know that was my front door? It's like, I know a lot of people have are registered with a sort of I can't, but I think they're just being asked the wrong questions. I think we can all visualize. It's just that those people who think they can't visualize think you actually see an image. And it isn't like that. It's not the same as your sight. It's you do have images in your head.
But it's very important you go to feelings, right? You
Yeah,
don't think and rationalize things. It just go to that feeling, go to that memory, that you yeah, and you find the feeling there.
with all of my work, it's get away from the detail. The clients that are the most tricky are the ones that say, "So you want me to close your eyes? Do you want? How do you want me to close my eyes? Do you want me head leant back? Just close your eyes, please." And then we've got the people who will say, "Well, I don't know what confidence feels like." So you can say, "Do you know anybody who's confident?" Well, not really. Well, have you seen anybody in a film who acts really confident? Oh, yes, Bruce Willis. Okay, just just think then of becoming Bruce Willis. You're Bruce Willis for the next few minutes. Yeah, just get yourself in the posture he would. You see, the change of posture and mind are the same thing. There's like two aspects of the same thing. So you can't feel bad about yourself without closing in on yourself and going, oh, yeah, I've got to protect myself. Nobody ever gets hit and then goes, yes, that hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So we have this open stature and we've got this closed stature. And it's the same all the way around the world. Even people who are blind from birth, still, that's joyous.
So Stephen,
They've never seen anybody do it.
the concept of bilateral clarity, how would you define it? What would be your definition?
Okay, so we need to go back because there's one element I've not done yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
Right, here we go. So what we've got is we've got the conscious mind giving instructions to the unconscious without realizing their instructions. Yeah. It's almost like a command system. You say, you think of something in your head, it goes, I'll get you that. But it gets you it to the level of passion you have about wanting it. And if you think in your head, I don't want this, you have a level of passion about not wanting it, and it misses out the don't, and it still fetches you it. It doesn't fetch you things you're not bothered about. Yeah. So there's two ways we can impact on the unconscious with passion. One is with a bad thing, and one is with the good things. But it's very rare we're really excited about something. We're usually only driven to this level of things if it's a bad thing. I don't want this to happen. It's terrible. Oh my God, I hope that doesn't happen. Yeah. So it's the passion that takes over from the message. So it becomes passion and an image. Get me that.
Yeah.
Get me a panic attack. Get me that. So we have to do this thing of being very careful of what we put into the unconscious. And if we do it with passion, it will fetch it all the more than it does if we're a bit blasé about it. So, but the problem is, now there's all sorts of different figures on this, and I really don't care if they're wildly inaccurate. There's Eckhart Tolle says that 70% of our thoughts are negative. And this is thought to be between 70 and 80,000 thoughts a day on average, the average person. So somebody who's anxious or depressed probably has a lot more than that. But if you can imagine the unconscious, which wants to do everything for you, which keeps you alive, which loves you to bits, and it's listening to you, and 70% of the time you tell it rubbish. And it's confused and it has to decipher it and it has to keep asking you, what did you want really? 70% of the day it's doing that. So half of the bilateral clarity is taking the conscious and making it very clear what you say to the unconscious. Now, you can't pull yourself up on every negative statement.
Yeah.
That's 70,000. That's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
So you pull yourself on the ones that you say with passion. And there's a little technique, and then I'll move over to the other side of this in a moment, to the unconscious side of it, and its role in this. So here's a technique that people can do at home. Now, I've trained with so many different things now that I'm unsure now where this came from. I don't know if I took something else and added a bit, or whether this was purely from somebody else. So I'm going to show it,
Okay.
and I'm not going to take any credit for it whatsoever. So imagine you've got negative written across the palm of your hand, and on the back of it you've got tattooed positive. Okay? So when you have a really strong negative thought that you can't break, because you can't not think of a purple elephant. So if you've got something, I want you to put your hand flat, but I want out so I can see it, but cup it. Now take something that you're thinking negatively about at the moment, something that's going to go wrong or it's not working for you or whatever. Can you think of something? Yeah, okay. Now, the idea is to make this as real as possible and use all your senses.
Oh, I will
So
cry,
you have,
I will cry.
I make lots of people cry. But it's a good thing. I mean, I just keep throwing them tissues.
I'm just kidding. I'm not.
No, I do this. I do this a lot. So what I want you to do is do this as realistically as possible. Is go up to your head and grab that thought and pull it out. And put it onto your hand and then look at it. And bounce your hand up and down a little bit, because if that's bothering you, that'll feel quite weighty. Yeah. Now give it a colour. Give it a texture. Give it a smell. Give it a feeling. When it feels really real, that's the negative that you don't want in your life. So all we're going to do now, you can do one of two things. You can either just flick your hand like that, or you can just throw it away. Okay? But either way works. So just flick your hand over. Okay. Now you flick your hand out, you'll notice that you're not holding on to it anymore.
Yeah,
So just wiggle your fingers, yeah? Now look at the back of your hand and remember the tattoo there that says positive. So I want you to take that thought you did have, or that thing that you thought was going to go wrong or whatever, and now turn it into, well, what do I want? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll have a little shake where we get rid of all the different tensions in the body. And then I'm going to ask you to think of that thing again. Can you find it?
Yeah, I can find it, and it's
Is it a lot lower?
yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. So would you like to get rid of this totally?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go then. So I want you, we're going to get faster and faster. So you put your hand out ready to accept this thing.
Okay.
You might notice this time it's smaller and lighter and everything else, but go in your head, pull it out, put it on your hand, bounce it on down, feel that thing, make it so real. As soon as it's real, flick it out. Yep, here we go. So we're going again now. Right, hand out. Take the thing out of your head, put it on your hand, make it real, bounce it up and down, throw it. Take it out of your head.
Okay.
Yeah,
And faster.
out your head. No, faster. In your hand, make it real, throw it. Take it out of your head, on your hand, throw it. Take it out of your hand, and hand, throw it.
You're confusing me, Steven.
Okay.
Ah!
Have a little shake.
All right.
Okay, think of that thing.
I feel leadership.
Yeah, it sort of dissolves it to, I can't be bothered now. and quite often it's like, what was it again?
Yeah,
Because
I'm searching actually. I'm searching.
the beauty of the way the brain works is that anything we think we've thrown out of it is as real as actually going down the garden and putting it in your dustbin. It's no different. As soon as we've thrown something away mentally, we've literally thrown it away. We wouldn't look for it anymore. If you had a bright yellow shirt in your wardrobe that you'd never worn, and every time you went to the wardrobe, it sort of like glared at you, and you went, I've never worn that, I'll throw it in the dustbin. The next day when you go to your wardrobe, you won't be looking for a yellow shirt because you put it in the dustbin. If it was there, you'd, what's happening here? Yeah? And the brain's no different. And another beautiful thing about the brain is when we bring something out ahead to expose it to light and we go, right, I'm going to think about this now. When we think about it, if we change the thoughts about it, when we put it back in the head, it overwrites the original video.
No.
It changes it. So I learned NLP and I learned from it. But I can't remember any of the techniques now because I don't need to, because I've learned how it works. So I don't have to do modalities and submodalities and all that sort of thing with a person. I just get to change what they're viewing by talking about it and making them view it differently. And then when it goes back in the head, they view it how I saw it.
Yeah.
And even if they don't fully agree with me, it's still ruined the underlying video. It's just made a mess of their video so they can't fetch you back too easily.
It's actually a language that your subconscious understands, right? Like these are so simple things, but it's something that your subconscious, your mind understands. It's like with the spinning and stuff like that.
Yeah,
These are other techniques, of course, but
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. You see, all techniques are great. They do what they do. My issue with everything is I want to find the cause and deal with the cause. Now, I came across a very good cartoon yesterday by Tom and Jerry. I went looking for it. It wasn't by surprise. And in it, the cat has banged the dog on the head thinking it was the mouse. And as the dog comes out of the water, it's banged it on the head and it goes, oh my God, it's going to kill me. And this big comedy lump comes up on the dog's head. And the cat goes, ooh, better not notice it. And it presses the lump down. So it pops up about 2 inches further back. And he presses that down and it springs up somewhere else. So then he gets his club and bashes the dog over the head and runs off. And we're forever looking at symptoms in clients. And the medical process usually says, well, what's a tablet that gets rid of the symptom? and you've got 5 symptoms, so you'll need a tablet for this, tablet for that, tablet for this, tablet for that. And by the way, you'll need this 5th or 6th tablet, because then that will stop all those tablets hurting each other. But the reality is, if somebody's got a series of problems, there's usually a thread runs through the middle of it. And that can usually go back to a trauma or anxiety, or the fact that we're in a stress-like state all the time, which might harm the immune system. You know, there's always a thread there. If we find the thread and we deal with that stress or the anxiety or whatever, all the symptoms can just go away. So I'm always looking at, I don't want to just get rid of that symptom. If I get rid of that symptom, I know it will pop back up somewhere. I want to get rid of the reason that they're still holding on to it. And this is the subtle difference, because when I started out, I was always looking for, well, what happened to you? And then I realized it's not what happens to you, it's how you feel about what happens to you, which is a very important differential. So important, I'm going to say it again. It's not what happens to you, it's how you feel about what happened to you. And usually within that is an element of blame, that you blame yourself for the thing that happened to you. And if you've been bullied or attacked or abused, the abuser usually tells you you're to blame for it. I wouldn't have done this, but you did that. I had to do it to you. Yeah? Which sinks in, because when you're a child, you take that and you go, yeah, that sounds logical and reasonable. Yeah, they had to bash me. But as an adult, when you take people back to that initial incident and see it, they go, yes, I wasn't to blame, was I? I was a child. They shouldn't have done that to me. It was just bad luck. Yeah, and it's different for them. So that's what I usually do. I take people back in time to that first event in lots of different ways. Find the initial traumatic event, deal with that with them. Or if they won't go back there because it was so traumatic the first time, their unconscious doesn't want to help them, I bargain with the unconscious. And here's a really good tip is, I think there's a proper name for this when it's done as a therapy, but I know it as the either or close from sales, when I was in sales. And it's you give the unconscious 2 alternatives. And you say, do this or this. And the unconscious will pick one of them. It won't say, here's a third one. Yeah. Now, I don't always use that because I think the unconscious is far better at picking what the solution is than either me or the client. But if it's stuck and it's sort of, well, I'm not going to show them it, I say, well, here's the reason you should show them it. If you show them it, I'm going to be with them, I'm going to look after them, and it will be perfectly safe, and we're going to find out what it is, we're going to deal with it, and because they're an adult now, they'll be fine, and it'll all go away. Now, if you aren't willing to show them it, they're going to be stuck with this thing in their head that is like rotting meat or rotten fish. It's stinking their head out. And if you're never going to show them where it is and what it is, what is the point in keeping it? So you're either going to show them it or you're going to throw it away. Would you like to show them it? And the unconscious goes, no. And I go, right, we're going to throw it away then. That's a whole different topic that I've put some training together on. So I just go through a process where they imagine throwing it away and I fill them up with love, joy and peace instead. Using the same neural pathways that they use for anxiety. So that when they should be getting this terrible anxiety coming on, they feel full of love, joy and peace. So it's like, I'm okay. So if we go back to the other side of it though, so we've dealt with the conscious. The conscious is giving bad instructions to the unconscious. Now the unconscious isn't free of blame in any of this. Because of the way it's set up, the conscious is your willpower. It holds 8 bits of data. Now, it doesn't sound much and it isn't much. So if I told you now my phone number, 1 digit at once, that would fill up your conscious mind. And if I said I want you to remember that while I carry on talking, you could either remember it or listen to me. But you couldn't do both. So the conscious mind, and that's the bit we think we're clever with, is tiny. I mean, it's almost not worth having, but it's in command. And it fetches stuff from the unconscious to go, how do I deal with this, and makes decisions from it. But it's still the unconscious that's sending all the information through on that. So what we've got is the unconscious is carrying out the commands, and it's got something like 100 trillion data connections that can all talk to each other at the same time. So its capacity for making connections is 100 trillion times 100 trillion, 100 trillion times. And that's thought to be more than there are atoms in the universe. So in our head, we've got this capacity for almost anything. We've got this massive supercomputer in there that can do lots of things at the same time. It does it really fast. It's also running your heart and your lungs and everything else to match what you're doing. It's a fabulous bit of kit, and we don't use it much. We just say, oh, I want a chocolate biscuit, and it goes, takes you to the cupboard and fetches it. We don't do much with it. Now, because it's not the command structure, it's not in the command structure. The command structure is your conscious. So when it gets something and it's not sure, it has to come back to the commanding officer and say, what did you want? So if it's not sure, it keeps coming back saying, what do you want? Now, it can make small subdivisions of things, because if you go, well, you know, it's sunny today, or what am I going to wear? And you just go to the wardrobe and you just grab things, it's making those sub-decisions going, well, this would be nice. I know what you like, and oh, you'll probably want shorts on today because you like your legs out in the sun. So it does know you and love you and understand you, and it does its best for you. So it'll make tiny decisions for you, because it doesn't matter if it gets it right or wrong. You're okay with it. But with the big decisions, it always has to come back to you and say, what do you want? So this is something I worked out once from OldPain2Go when I was dealing with a woman who'd fallen off a horse. And my idea was that if I told people to stop doing the thing that their brain feared, like riding horses and falling off them and possibly dying, that the pain would go away. And so a woman comes to see me, and I've dealt with at least 15 women by that time who'd fallen off horses.
Okay.
And I've got them out of pain by simply saying, are you going to ride a horse anymore? And they said, no, I've already stopped riding. And I go, well, you don't need the back pain anymore. And magically, within minutes, the back pain's gone, because it was there to stop them riding a horse again in case they fell off and died. Mm-hmm. Now, a woman comes to see me, she's 72. She's got the same issues. So I say, was this falling off a horse? And she goes, yes, how did you know that? And you can pick up these patterns. And so I'm chatting to her and I say, so you're 72. And so all I'm going to say is, I bet it's put you off riding horses. And if you don't ride a horse again, I think the back pain could go away. And she goes, but I want to ride a horse.
Steven, how long was this? How much time was this? Oh my God.
Ago.
Again, yeah. How many years was? It doesn't work this way. Again.
When did I work on this woman?
No. What was the? How many years ago did she?
Oh, did she fall off the horse?
Yeah.
She fell off a horse 15 years before.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
My English was just out of my mind.
That's absolutely fine. Please
I'm back.
Please don't ask me to talk in any other language other than English.
Okay. Well, we're back on track. So it was 15 years. 15 years.
Yeah. So this is 15 years ago. So she's had back problems ever since. Now, the thing about death is, I quite often look to see if people thought they were going to die when they had their accident, because that boosts the problem. If you just fall off something and it breaks a leg, well, it wasn't life-threatening. So the unconscious sort of lets it heal and lets you get over it. But if you feel like you're going to die when another thing happened, it goes, oh, this is dangerous riding a horse. You know, this is the 5th time you've fallen off. Now, I actually got into a conversation with her if she was winded at the time, and she was. And that ups the stakes, because when you fall off the horse, it's like, that hurts. But then there's, I can't breathe. And there's several seconds where you're, and the more you tighten up to try and breathe, it's already tightened up. You need to relax to breathe. And the more you panic, the more you can't breathe.
Yeah.
Until there's like a minute gone, and then the body goes, stop messing about, I'll take over again. And it relaxes you to breathe.
Yeah.
But it gives you that fear that you ride a horse again, you're going to die. So that's what it did for her. It said, well, look, you've already got backache. I don't have to invent backache for you. You've already got backache. I'll keep the backache. And then you won't ride a horse because it won't be a pleasant experience, so you'll stop riding. But it's not allowed to tell her not to ride, because she's not going to definitely die next time she rides. It's not a premonition. It's she could die if she falls off. But she rode for 20 or 30 years and only fell off 5 times. So it can't stop her doing it. Now, if it could stop her, you know the power of the unconscious, it could give her the burning sensation in the buttocks and down her legs every time she sat in the saddle. It's perfectly capable of doing that. So, but it doesn't. So when I say to her, are you going to stop riding a horse? And she goes, no. I was like, how do I help her? Every time I do this, they agree to stop riding a horse, the pain goes away. It's not going to happen this time. So I had to sit there and think it through. And I thought, well, just a minute. It's not telling her not to ride a horse specifically. It's hinting. Because she also has backache when she's sat in a chair, when she's on the bus, when she's riding a bike. Mm-hmm. So it's not being specific. So it's trying to tell her a message, but it's not. It's just dropping a hint. Because it's not its job to control her life. It's a job to keep her alive. It's its job to keep her alive, but it's not its job to control what she does with that life.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I suddenly had this sudden thought, and I went, well, why are you saying you want to ride a horse again? You know, you're 72. If you break your hip when you're 72, it can be, it can lead to death. And she said, Stephen, I would rather ride a horse tomorrow and fall off it and die than not be able to ever ride a horse again. And she said, I'm not even saying that I'm going to ride a horse again. I'm just saying I would like to think that I could ride a horse again, because I'm 72. I don't want to sit in a chair and think, this is all I can do now. And I said, I totally agree with you. And I just realised that the unconscious can't force you to not ride a horse by giving you pain. And what happens with pain over a long time is it just gets turned up a little bit each time you disobey it, sort of thing. But it's not forcing you to do it. It's just dropping hints. But the hint gets a bit louder. And it takes years for the volume to come up, so you don't notice it. But then it affects everything in your life. So I said to her, I want your unconscious to understand, I don't think it's allowed to stop you riding a horse. If you really think you want to do it that much, I think we ought to implant that will on the unconscious. So I want you to say in your head, yes, I'm going to ride a horse again, I'll take the risk. And she said that in her head, and I said, I want your unconscious now, will it let go of the pain? And it went, yeah. And the pain went.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I didn't realise what I'd caught onto there until a few weeks later. I'm training people, and I tell a group of people about this. And a guy says, did you think you made that up, Stephen, about the pain in the leg and the burning sensation? I said, yeah, I made it up. He said, it's real. He said, I'm a keen horse racing fan. And when jockeys have fallen off horses, which they regularly do, and broken bones, and all jockeys know at least 2 other jockeys that have died, they know how serious it can be. So when they've had a really bad fall and they've broken lots of bones and they're in hospital, when they come out, when they want to get back in the saddle, they know that as soon as they get in the saddle, they'll have this burning sensation at the top of the legs and the buttocks. Because if you think about it, they don't actually sit on the saddle, but they sit in a position that you never normally do in any other aspect of life. Yeah, to sit there with your bottom poised up in the air. So as soon as they go into that pose, they know the bottom's going to feel like it's on fire. So they drug themselves up with strong painkillers. And they know this will last a few races. And here's what happens. The unconscious is saying, don't get in the saddle, you'll kill yourself this time. And they manage to ride with being dosed up with painkillers, and they manage to get to the end of the race, and the unconscious goes, well, you didn't die this time, but you'll probably die next time. And it keeps doing it, and they have 3 or 4 rides, and this thing goes away. Because the unconscious goes, I'm not saving your life, am I? I've got to stop doing this. If you're choosing to do this, I have to let you do it. This is fabulous. So this is what's going wrong with the unconscious mind, is when it does things, it doesn't tell us why it's doing it. It drops hints. And as we talked about earlier, if I drop a hint, well, buy me what you like, but don't buy me a pen, you buy me a pen. So it's doing the same as we do to it. It's giving us rubbish ideas, going, I'll drop a few hints. You see, pain is one of the signals, but how we feel is another one of the signals. So if we get in something that seems like it's threatening, we smell a perfume from, Auntie Doris, who used to hit us around the head. It goes, Auntie Doris is here, she's going to hit you, and we react to it. But we have to have the energy to run or fight or whatever. So it's preparing us for things by giving us hints, usually with emotions or pain or whatever. It's sort of trying to tell us. But it's perfectly capable of telling us. You see, people say that the unconscious doesn't have language. Well, I would say to those people, what do you think's been coming out of my mouth the last hour or so? None of this is conscious thought. This is me just reeling off whatever springs into my mind, which is the unconscious. So we've got this thing that looks after us, it keeps us alive, it pushes us towards pleasure and away from pain as much as it can. If it needs to give us pain, it's to keep us away from even more harmful pain. So it does the best it can, like your best friend, but it drops hints like your best friend does. They don't tell you to do something, they say, well, I don't think, I think you might find this is better. But it's not using words, so it can actually tell us. And we can ask it questions and we can say, what's this about? Give me an image of what this is about. Because I'm sick of it now. I don't want this anymore. I don't want this feeling. I don't want this sensation. Where does it stem from? Or how do I get rid of it? Or can I simply just say, I don't care where it came from. I just don't want to feel like this. Doesn't that simplify it? I don't want to feel like that anymore. I don't know what you're doing. I'm never in danger when that happens.
Well, that's a shortcut, like
That's the short. I love shortcuts. And it's to get this rapport going between the two sides. But you see, for the unconscious to tell us things, all it needs is permission. Now, I didn't think of this till the other day, but think of that word, permission. Permission. This time, I'm going to allow you to do this.
Mission, yeah.
It's per mission. Every mission that's like this, you can do this.
Okay, yeah.
We're doing it per mission. So if we can say to it, look, when you tell me things, I will still make my mind upon them. You won't be influencing me, you'll be helping me, because you'll be giving me the clarity to say, I know what it's about now, and I get to choose. So you'll still be doing your job, and I'll still be doing my job. And out of respect for you, I'm going to do my job better because I'm going to stop confusing you 70,000 times a day. And I'm going to tell you what I want now.
But actually, what? So
Yeah.
sorry. So what actually you were saying is that you don't, like, for example, with the horses, you don't have to get the explanation of the fear of death, of the fear of falling. It's actually as simple as asking your subconscious, or actually giving your subconscious the permission, like, look, I don't know where it comes from, but it doesn't suits me. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It isn't good for me. So you just can turn it off.
absolutely.
And off is, of course, like you said, it's always in levels, right? So
Yes.
you can turn pain or anxiety off, but it sometimes has a purpose, right? So when do you decide to go for an off or for a certain level of
I never go
pain
for an
or anxiety?
off with yeah, I never go for an off with anything.
Never. Okay.
I'll remove something they don't need and I won't even replace it. Because if they didn't need it, why would you have to think of something to replace it? But if it's pain or anxiety or almost anything that they're running, there's a purpose for it. It's just that if you think of it like an alarm system, if you've got an alarm running in your head for anxiety and it's 8 out of 10, you're going to miss the low level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to miss seeing things that creep up on you because you're always there already. Like a meerkat, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? Is that danger? You're only looking for danger. So when I deal with people with anxiety, I take them from a massive level of anxiety and I take them back to reset it at zero. Because while they're sat with me in that room, they're not in any danger whatsoever and they're having a lot of fun because I always make therapy fun. Strangely, even with people who've gone through terrible things, I still make therapy fun. And it's not taking the mickey out of them or anything. It literally is. They've got to relax to be able to release things. And while they're still in the like this stage, there's nothing I can do with them. So I have to get them to relax to let go of it. Nearly forgot where I'm going with this. I think I have.
So we were talking about the fact that the level of pain or
Oh,
anxiety,
yeah.
you can put it to a zero, but mainly you say like I not want to shut it off. I want to have like the possibility to come up for the low levels.
So what we've got is we've got an element there that if the body thinks I'll be covering this in session 2, so I won't go into it too much. But if the body thinks it's looking after you, it will do almost anything to keep you safe. So we can't criticize when we get these sensations and go, stop it, I don't want these anymore. We can say that was really good when you introduced it whenever that was, but it's so long ago, I can't even remember introducing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it messes my life up now. So, unless you still think there's a good reason to keep it, I want it resetting to what it should be. Because then I'll be more safe. Because then I'll notice something at a level 1 or a 2 that might be building up to hurt me and I'll spot it there. But if I'm already at an 8, I'll not even see that until it's a 9. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's too late. So if we explain to the unconscious that it's not keeping us safe, it's actually putting us in more danger, then it has to let go of it. It's got no option. That's its job. It's not there to harm you. It's there to keep you from harm. And if it's doing something that it thinks is keeping you from harm, but it's harming you, then we need that logical discussion with the unconscious to say, don't run it anymore. Set it to 0. Now, even if tomorrow you think, oh, crikey, I need a level 4, do it. Treat it as a new idea.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Drop it to 0 now. If you need it, bring it back. I don't think you will. And whenever you need it, it's there for you. That anxiety can go, oh, I've got exams, I better prepare. It can do anything, but it's not going to be running all the time in the background.
And you've got again 10 levels. So you're
Yeah,
not jumping to level 8, you've got level one, 2, 3, and
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And this is the whole thing. If you're at a high level, you can't notice the lower levels. Just think of it as a volume control. Somebody plays some nice music in the background at level 1, you're not going to hear it if it's level 8 already. And the trouble is as well, what we look for is what we get. Because we think we're instructing the unconscious. So if we feel like we're in danger, what do we look for? We look for danger. What do we see? We see lots of danger. So we keep the level up there because, yes, there is danger. And I talked about drama queens earlier. And they're at this level of they think everything is dangerous and everything's out to attack them. And it's all personalized. But if you listen to somebody carefully who keeps telling you all these terrible things that happen to them, when you actually sit and listen, they'll tell you something really trivial. But when you get down to the base of it, it'll be, the postman was 10 minutes late today. And you go, yeah? Well, I missed my bus. I had to have that thing to go to the job interview. And he was deliberately late. And you go, well, he didn't know you was going for the interview. Well, he always comes at 12 and it was 10 past today. And they bring it back to, there's this plot against them.
Of course,
Because
Stephen, if I may interrupt, it's always important that we don't go into the story too much, right? Because you go into a lot of details which are not really of any matter, right? So I think if you go into a story, you really dive into to find that core, right?
So, I'll give you what I teach everybody from OldPain2Go. This will save you hours in your therapy room.
There we go.
When you meet a client the first time, you say, briefly, tell me what the problem is. And I guarantee you that will save you so many hours. Because what's happening is, I built myself up to getting to say that. Because I used to ask people, or I used to say to people when they entered my room, and I was mainly known for my anxiety work in one session, and I used to say to people, I want your unconscious to give me all the clues I need to help you today, but you won't understand this at the level of the consciousness. And they'd say, you're right, I didn't understand a word of that. And I go, it didn't matter because you're unconscious. So I was asking for it to give me clues. And then I suddenly realised one day, after listening to something that Mike Mandel did, and I said, I've added an extra step in here. So the next person that came through the door, it was one of my rare people that I'd seen more than once, and she had this particular issue, and I said, okay, we've tried everything, and we thought we've got there, but we've never quite got there. This was depression, which I found was very sticky. And so I said, I'm not going to ask you now, but I'm going to talk to your unconscious. So I said, just close your eyes for me. And I do this. I don't actually go into formal inductions or trances or whatever. So I said, just close your eyes for me. I want your unconscious, before you come next week, to tell you what we have to do that will make you right. And I said, open your eyes when that's installed. And she opened her eyes and she went, what the hell's that about? And I went, it doesn't matter. She was due on the Friday. On the Wednesday, she rang me up to say, my unconscious has told me what we need to do. And she said, but I don't want to do it. And I said, you're doing it. And I won't go into the details because it's a bit too intimate. But we then did this thing on the Friday and it worked beautifully.
Okay, yeah.
And she really didn't want to do it, but I forced her to do it. And as a therapist, it was an answer I would never have dreamt of, because I would have thought that what we did would have made her worse if it went wrong. But I trusted implicitly in her unconscious saying this is the answer.
This is the answer, yeah.
And we went and did it, a massive turnaround in her.
So, and this is actually a nice example of getting clarity between the conscious and the subconscious,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And when these two come together, that's when the magic happens. That's when the problem gets solved, right? You get alternatives that you didn't think of earlier, or
Brilliant. Yeah, I've got a great example of that. I'll tell it as succinctly as I can, but I'm a plumber. My background was plumbing. So I obviously put my own plumbing in here. And I had a toilet that leaked because all the connections for it were in a cupboard. So they managed to start leaking and managed to get away with leaking for a long while. And it pulled the floor up and everything else. So I had to change the toilet and the cabinet it came with and the flooring. And so it's a massive thing for me to put all this back in again. I put this back in, and the bit that leaked before is now going to be hidden in the cupboard again. And I'm a bit paranoid now that it's cost me a few £100 and I've done all this work. So I'm thinking, well, I need to check this out. So I literally connect it all up as I would normally do, as I did for 10, 15 years as a plumber. And everything's fine. And I coat the inside of this cupboard with toilet paper so that even if the slightest drip happens, I'll be able to see the stain on the paper. Yeah. And then I cover the inside of the toilet pan with paper just in case anything leaks into there. And I mark a level on the cistern. It's a see-through cistern. I mark a level on the cistern where the water is, and I leave it overnight with the water turned off. I get back up in the morning, it's dropped that much water out of it. But there's no water gone through the toilet pan, and there's no water in the cupboard. This is impossible. It has to go somewhere. So I'm now paranoid about, I've got a leak and I don't even know where it is, and it's not showing up, and will it show up in 5 years again and be bad? And consciously I spent several days thinking about that. I never got an answer. And the reason I didn't get an answer is because I didn't want to have to take the toilet pan out, because then I'd have to do the connection again, and then I wouldn't know if it leaked or not to put it back, and I'd have to start all over again. So something in my head was going, well, puzzle this out, but don't allow for taking the toilet pan out. Then one night I passed it over to my unconscious. As I went to sleep, I said, you solve it. I've had enough. My unconscious usually gives me the answer in the morning. It woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, have you double checked this and this? So I went and checked the paper again and made sure everything was fine. And I went back to bed and I went, yes, it's all checked. And it went, leave it with me. And I actually, this is very strange for me. I get up when I feel like getting up, which is usually 8:30, 9 o'clock. I slept through till 1 o'clock in the afternoon without waking. When I woke up, I had the answer. The new toilet pan had a fault in it. And it was leaking as though it should go into the toilet, but was then leaking directly down the drain.
Ooh.
Yeah. I would have never dreamed of that. My unconscious came up with the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I trust in my unconscious to give me answers to things. Now, I don't let it make decisions for me because that's not its job. But I let it stack up all the relevant details until it comes back and says, right, here's a clear winner. This is good because of all these reasons. This is good because of these reasons. What do you think, Steven? Yeah. So I allow my unconscious to give me answers to things. And it saves me fretting about it with my little 8 bits of data and not getting to sleep. Because if you go to bed and go, I've got a problem, it wakes you up in the morning going, don't forget you've got a problem. It doesn't solve it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you say, over to you, my conscious has had enough, you work it out, it does it. And you mentioned something earlier that took me into the realms of flow. You know, musicians play a piece, and it just sort of, they have that day where it's beautiful. They don't know why. They just live in that moment, and it's flow. And I live a lot of my life in flow because I have this relationship with my unconscious that says, well, you do it. It's quite a lazy way of doing it. And so I think the best example is something I created called the canvas. And it originally came from an idea that I wanted to produce a CD that was context free. And I just wanted it to be, this will sort everybody out. You just sell them the one CD. Whatever the problem is, it helps them. And I'd heard that Mike Mandel had a thing called the Art Gallery. So I got in touch with Mike and Chris and said, have you still got the, can I buy the Art Gallery on its own? And they said, we don't use it anymore. We use Mindscaping now. Chris said, but I'll have a look and see if I can dig it out for you. So I joined their training, and I still hadn't had any feedback from Chris when one night my brain must have said, context free, and it's an art gallery. How difficult is that to think? And it gave me the answer. I woke up in the morning with a half-finished picture on a canvas. And I knew it was the answer, but I didn't know the details to it. So I was at Trudy's house before we moved in together, and so I had to sneak downstairs and find the lights and put and find a bit of paper and pen to write this down because it was so valuable to me. Like, I'm not going to forget this. At midday that day, I had a talk to give that was open-ended. I always start with how the mind and body work together and how the conscious and the unconscious work together. And I got part of the way through it, and I said, I'm going to do something very unusual now. I'm going to let my unconscious take over and tell you about the canvas because I know nothing about it. And it was almost like I stood back from myself and my unconscious gave the rest of the talk. And I created this thing called the canvas. And it was fabulous. And I was learning more than they were in the audience because I'd never heard any of this. I didn't know the details. It just made it up for me. So when I've given talks before, people are always interested, but if you get 2 or 3 people at the end want to talk to you, that's fine. But at this one, I had 12 people in the audience, and it must be the best talk I've ever given because I got 7 people came for treatments from.
Treatments?
Yeah, for treatments. So I actually earned quite a lot of money just from telling them about my new idea.
Wow.
It was fabulous. And very fortunately, I always record my talks. So I was able to go back and go, what was the details again? And listen to them. But it was just a brave thing to do. It was just, I trust my unconscious. It won't let me down. It'll tell me. Because you see, to me, if it could show me a half-finished canvas, it must have known the details. It wouldn't just go, there you are, there's a bit of a clue, work it out yourself, Steven. It must have known exactly what it meant.
Yeah.
That to the answer. So this is what I would like for the whole planet, really, is to have bilateral clarity. Understand that we talk negatives to the unconscious and it doesn't really cope with it well. It can understand some negatives, and the more passion you put with it, the more it will fetch it. So we also ought to learn to put passion with what we want, and then it's more likely to achieve it. And the other side of it is we have to give our unconscious permission. And it's as simple as that. Just say you have permission. So I'd like to end this with a statement that my unconscious made up for me.
Wow.
So
now we are very curious, you know that? What will come now?
So I better explain how I got to this because it'll help put it in context. I'm in a queue to go into an event, and there's hundreds of people there, and it's sort of, we're all trying to get through the same door. So people are sort of converging on this door, and a guy joins me in the queue. I've never seen him before in my life before. He doesn't introduce himself or anything, and he seems like the sort that will carry on talking when you're in the seminar next to you. I didn't want to sit next to him. So he says, what are your goals? He doesn't even know my name. And I didn't want to sit next to him, so I said, I don't have any. and everybody that heard it, that was around us, sort of looked round to go, oh my God, somebody didn't have goals. What an idiot. So I get all these people looking at me disparagingly. So he says, what do you mean? I said, well, think about it. You see, if you have a goal, if I want something now, but I know it's going to take me 5 years to get there, I will sit down and I'll draw out the 10 steps to get there, one every 6 months. Yeah. Now, what will actually happen is I'll be about 9 months designing all the 10 steps. So by the time I get to the first step, I'm late. But when I get on the first step, things will have changed in those 9 months. And step 2 is not really convenient to get to. So I'll need to go over here to step 2. When I get on step 2, it's miles away from step 3. So I'll make a step 3 up. And I'll be really lucky if it goes back to any of those other steps. So all you have to do to plan anything is just think of step 1. You don't need that confidence you get there. You just have that confidence that I will get there. I'll find how to get there. But you won't know until you're on step 1. So I said, and then when you finally get there at 5 years and you get this wonderful thing that you've focused your whole life on, you go, right, I've got this now. I can't remember wanting this because it was 5 years ago you wanted it. Or you could say, oh, I'm a multi-millionaire now. Oh, the wife and kids are going to love this. Where are they? They left you 2 years ago because you were so focused on your goal. So this guy said, well, what do you do then?
Good question.
And I didn't have an answer. So my unconscious said this. I said, I've asked my unconscious to give me a life so friggin' awesome that I cannot even imagine it now.
Wow.
And this guy was like, wow. And everybody turned around to go, oh, he's not such an idiot then. I'd never heard of that before. Now, what that was my unconscious saying, just give me permission to run this. So I gave it permission.
You did give it.
I just gave that permission. Yeah, you give me a life that's so friggin' awesome, I cannot even imagine it now. And from that day, my whole life spun around. It was fabulous. I didn't do anything any different. Everything I'd chased in the past, you know how you chase things, it runs the opposite way, doesn't it? Give me an opportunity, give me an opportunity. You come from this base of, oh, God, he's a bit needy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I call it the shy puppy syndrome. You go in a room and they say, we've got a shy puppy. And you put your hand out and it runs into the corner and hides. But if you just ignore it and you sit down, within 2 minutes, it's sat on your knee saying, everybody fusses over me. Why aren't you fussing? Yeah.
That's a nice metaphor.
Yeah. So, and it's happened to me that quite a lot, quite often. Or my baby doesn't cry and their baby cries. And then I go, well, I'll hold it for you. And they go, oh, she won't go to anybody else. And then I hold the baby stops crying. Then the dog came and sat on my knee. And they said, well, call us a liar then. So this is something that changed me. And within days, it was Jason and Lynette got in touch and said, can I interview you? Nobody had ever interviewed me. And Jason's a well-known guy. And I wanted to write back and say, have you got the right Stephen Blake? It just seemed so way out to have somebody recognise what I was doing. I didn't think anybody had ever heard of me.
Well, there you go.
Absolutely. And then within 3 months, I'd literally turned over the same as I turned over the previous year. And nothing had changed. And I was looking at my PayPal account, and like every day there was like, Trudy, there's another one coming. There's another payment coming. And it was like, ding, and another one.
Wow. Don't we all love that feeling?
It was strange. So, would you and the viewers like that installed?
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
Okay. So I'm going to obviously do it with you, and everybody else can join in when they're watching. Okay. Now, I do keep the word frigging in, which is a little bit of an expletive, really, but I will keep it in because it gives it that power without actually swearing. So, here we go then. I just want you to just relax. Allow your shoulders to drop, take a few deep breaths and just get yourself in that nice place. Now, when I talk to somebody else's unconscious, I just explain that I'm only doing it because the words I know and you don't know them. So this is on your behalf. And you've asked for this, those of you that are doing it. So I'm just going to say to your unconscious, here's the permission. I want you now to give me a life so friggin' awesome that I cannot even imagine it now. It's got the absolute permission now to run out every day and look for things that you'll find awesome and present them to you, because you'll get to make the final decision on them. And as soon as your unconscious has installed that, it will open your eyes for you and bring you back into the room. Hello again.
Let's do a double check. Okay. That's my
Okay.
yes finger.
All right.
That's my
Okay.
yes finger, yeah. So,
Well, you see, I do that deliberately at the end. We used to say to people, and come back into the room as soon as you're ready. Now, consciously, they're going, I don't know, am I ready or not? So people used to come back in the room too quickly, and they'd still have pain or whatever it is, because their unconscious hadn't finished, but it had no way of saying to them, I haven't finished yet.
hmm.
They're expecting to experience something, so they're going, well, nothing's happening, so I ought to come back in the room. And then there's an embarrassment factor. When it's quiet and you've got your eyes shut, you go, everybody's watching me. So then you come back in the room. So just by changing it to, and because I haven't got people in trance, so I'm not bringing them out of trance, so I'm relying on the unconscious to install it, and then I'm saying, when you've installed it, open their eyes for them. So that people are sat there and their eyes are closed and they're not going, should I open them? Should I open them? They're going, they're supposed to open on their own. Oh, they have done. So we've got a nice little convincer there that it's installed it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
don't need the yes bit
oh
afterwards.
yeah. It's
Yeah, you don't need that because the unconscious is saying, yes, I've installed it.
this is me. I love to double check.
So,
Well,
yeah.
well,
I,
Stephen,
yeah,
just
I was going to say, I think we're there, aren't we? Yeah.
yeah. Well, I really want to thank you for this great explanation, the insights of bilateral clarity, and the passion where you have to share it with us. It's great. It was very learnful, and there's a second session going on. But people can ask you questions later on. So there's a Q&A. So if people want, just join in, and you can ask all questions you have to our
Yeah.
Stephen Blake. Thank you very much, and on to
You.
the next session.
All right, Glenn. Thank you.